Coming. Here is Jano Lieber.
Okay, thanks for joining us. I'm Jano Lieber, MTA Chair and CEO, here with Long Island Railroad Interim President Kathy Rinaldi, who also serves so successfully as the President of Metro North. We've had a lot of requests from media for an update on Long Island Railroad service this week, so we wanted to be responsive, and that's why we're here. Listen, the first week of the new timetables was tough as customers adjusted and, frankly, as the MTA adjusted to address the issues that emerged as we moved to the new schedule. But we're pleased with the progress that we've made this week, and we're going to continue to make adjustments as we go. We always said that Long Island Railroad was going to carefully monitor the conditions as we did this significant move and transformation of our schedule, and those adjustments, which are intended to make sure the customer experience continues to improve, are being made. Kathy's going to talk about what's been done and what's going to be done in the days to come. But I want to make sure that we're not losing sight of the original vision for Grand Central Madison, the terminal that we're in, and for the entire Long Island Railroad service plan. The New York leaders of the past who kicked off this project saw the potential to grow the capacity of the railroad, to run more trains, offer more options, and, equally important, to enable robust reverse commuting service. And that has actually come to pass. The total number of peak hour trains on the Long Island Railroad in the peak hour has more than doubled. Focusing strictly on Manhattan terminals, peak hour service is up 65%. And at Jamaica, trains to Penn and Grand Central Madison are arriving every 3 to 5 minutes in the peak. The increase also applies to the weekends, where we've gone from fewer than 400 trains a day to more than 600, a 52% increase. The best sign of all is that, notwithstanding the challenges and the adjustments, ridership is actually headed in the right direction. Tuesday of this week was the second highest ridership since the pandemic began. Tuesday and Wednesday were the biggest ridership days of 2023, and preliminary indications are that today is going to be very big as well. This is all huge for Long Island and its future. We can't forget one of the main goals of this project was to unlock reverse commuting in order to strengthen the Long Island economy, to make it possible for people to travel to the island for jobs and to help Long Island businesses grow and prosper by recruiting from a much bigger geographic footprint. For the first time, Long Island businesses can get employees from the entire region. That's a game changer. This week, there have been 140 reverse commute trains in the morning and evening peak periods, compared to just 87 in the old schedule, a 60% increase in reverse commuting to Long Island. That's big. Now, Kathy and her team have done an incredible job navigating the rollout, lengthening 30-plus trains, eliminating a few stops so that we can take full advantage of the express tracks that we have, and plugging some holes in the schedule. Absolutely, there are further adjustments and improvements to be made. From day one, we knew, as I said, that there was going to be a learning curve, and we know there's a long way to go to make sure that our customers feel truly comfortable with the new timetables and the new operation. We're especially focused on what we can do to give riders a better understanding of their options, both through the Train Time app, which has actually gotten a very, very positive response, and also via announcements and signage, especially at Jamaica. But little by little, we're moving to an era where the system is achieving its goals and is working much better. So I remain confident that we're on the right path for Long Island. With that, let me turn it over to Kathy for some more details. Kathy Rinaldi.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Jano. Before these new schedules took effect, we said that we'd be watching closely from hour one, and we have been. The Long Island Railroad team is all over the rollout in terms of looking for trends, what ridership is looking like, what trains are popular, and we're adjusting accordingly. As Jano said, we noticed a few red flags right away. There was crowding on trains to Penn caused by higher than expected ridership as people are accustoming themselves to the new schedule, and the frequency of Atlantic shuttle service to Brooklyn. So what do we do about it? As we announced over the weekend, 30 a.m. and p.m. trains are now longer because we added cars to trains that exceeded capacity. We increased the number of trains to Brooklyn during the a.m. peak to 24, and we changed the way that those trains were dispatched so they run more like a shuttle service than a scheduled service. As a result, the average headways in the a.m. peak are down from 12 minutes to about 7.5 minutes. Platform controllers are now directing departures for the Atlantic Terminal bound shuttle trains so that there's less likelihood of customers missing the next departing train. And news for next Monday, we're going to be moving some trains over from GCM to Penn Station and also adding stops on some trains that currently originate at Brentwood. So let me just describe those changes a little bit. So train 2013, it's the 542 train from Ronkonkoma to GCM. That train will now operate to Penn Station, arriving at 6:55 a.m. Train 827 is currently the 7:54 a.m. train from Long Beach to GCM. That train's now going to operate to Penn Station, arriving at 8:44 a.m. Train 268, which is the 5:28 p.m. train from GCM to Babylon, is now going to originate in Penn Station instead of GCM and at 5:28 p.m. Train 714, the 7:31 a.m. train to Hempstead, now is going to originate from Penn instead of GCM. We're also adding several stops on Ronkonkoma trains. So the trains that currently originate in Brentwood will add stops at Central Islip and Ronkonkoma. So I'm going to read them at some length here. So the 5:16 a.m. train from Brentwood to Penn is now going to have added Ronkonkoma and Central Islip stops. I'm not going to give you all the times for departure. That'll all be on the web. The 5:48 train from Brentwood to Penn will now have, again, added Ronkonkoma and Central Islip stops. Same for the 6:03 train from Brentwood and the 7:57 train from Brentwood. And the purpose of this is to relieve some of the transfers that we're seeing in Jamaica, provide more service opportunities to Penn from Ronkonkoma and Central Islip, spread out some of our customer loads, and it's responsive to some of the customer requests we've received over the past week and a half. Ramping up customer communications is another huge piece of the puzzle. We've increased the number of station personnel, especially in Jamaica. Those customer ambassadors are there to assist riders with real-time information, answer any questions they might have about the new service plan. When our customers talk out their commute with experts, you might realize that a train to GCM or Penn might be more efficient for your commute than one to Brooklyn, or that you can more easily transfer at one of our eastern stations. We want our people to take advantage of Long Island Railroad employees on the ground, especially at GCM and Jamaica. It's important for our riders to learn how the new terminal works, how the new system works, about all the connections that are available here to Metro North and the subways and all the exits to the streets in the main concourse. The Train Time app, as Jana just said a little while ago, is a fantastic resource, very highly rated, very user-friendly. You can buy tickets, you can check schedules, you can see live crowding conditions on board, and more. I want to underscore, I've been saying this all week to most of you, that this is a very dynamic process. We are going to be continuing to make adjustments based upon ridership and loading data. We look at it every single day. We want to improve the customer experience, and we really appreciate our customers' patience throughout this process. And I also want to give a shout out and a word of thanks to the Long Island Railroad employees who've been out there every single day. A lot of those frontline employees, they're the ones who are interacting with customers. They've been empathetic, they've been helpful, they've been patient, and I'm really, really grateful for all of their support in getting through the last couple of weeks. And now I'm going to throw it back to Jenna for some Q&A.
Don't go far. Yeah.
All right, Evan Simcoe, Bernard Steve from the New York Daily News over there.
Hey, Jano. Hey, Kathy. So I remember hearing when this was launched that you guys have been expecting a 60-40 split between Penn and GCM. It turned out to be more of a 70-30 split in the first week. What's it looking like now? How many people are coming here?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same every day. I mean, we have been looking at that, and again, we're basing our analysis on this loadway technology that we have, and we have to make some adjustments because not all the cars have it. But there did seem, at least in the early part of this week, to be more migration of customers to GCM from Penn. So I think it's too early to sort of say that we've got a trend on our hands, but we did see that earlier in the week, so we're keeping an eye on that.
And is there still, I know some older cars were brought on to sort of help,
Yeah,
elongate trains?
the M3s, yeah.
Yeah, are the M3s holding up, and are they going to be in a position to continue doing this job?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're older. I mean, they're mid-'80s vintage cars, so obviously they're not as reliable as the new cars that we have out there, but we are relying upon them to deliver service, and we expect to be doing that for the foreseeable future.
Alfonso Castillo from News Today.
Hi, I got a couple of questions. First, I've been talking to a lot of riders, advocate types, who say they predicted these problems, they communicated these at the public hearings, that they gave you fair warning, these were entirely predictable, and nothing was done. You moved forward with these schedules despite folks pointing out some of these problems that they expected would occur and did occur. How do you address this notion that their input was ignored?
So, as you know, I think as this group knows, there was a lot of public input, and we had a number of public sessions last summer. The schedules were up. We got a lot of response from the folks in Port Washington. I would say the bulk of the input that we got during that public period was from Port Washington people, and we did make adjustments in response to that. There was a concern about the shuttle operation at all, right? And the shuttle operation, as I said a little while ago, that's been a little bit bumpy. It's a very important part to the service plan, but we're continually invested in making that a better experience for our customers.
I'm going to try to get to two other quick ones out first. First, what is the ridership data that you were using to inform these schedules? I've heard some folks say that these were origin destination studies from years ago, pre-COVID. How recent is the information that you were using that informed that 60-40 split? And also, more specifically, I've heard some folks talking about coming out of Madison Square Garden events, whether it's Rangers games, Knicks games, and huge crowds for trains, when at the same time some trains are leaving here basically empty. Does that make sense?
So in terms of, in terms of the basis for sort of the assumption about splits, yeah, there was an origin to destination study done in like the 2014 or so timeframe, but there was a refresh done post-COVID in 2021 just to see whether those results still held up, and they did. So they still in 2021 posited a roughly 60-40 split based upon where people worked. I mean, obviously, the COVID return to work story is still being written even as we speak. So, but there was a refresh done in 2021 post-COVID to see whether the assumptions still held, and they did. With respect to your observation about, the Big East tournament is this week. I mean, obviously there's events out there. We are following that data train by train, day by day, and we're making the adjustments that we can to give people a good experience. That's all I can say.
So, and I would just remind all of us that, we all assume because we're consuming so much news that everybody knows about everything that's happening on Earth at every minute. But not everybody, people have their routines, and not everybody was fully aware of. We keep hearing that from passengers who are coming to Grand Central. Wow, I didn't know this was happening. Wow, I didn't hear about this the last couple days. So we're expecting that information is going to continue to flow, and people are continuing to find out about what's the best route for them depending on where they're going. And so the split may evolve over time. I think that is one of our assumptions, continues to be our assumption, that this is a little bit dynamic right now. We're only 2 weeks in.
Juan Lasso here from the Long Island Herald.
Hi, how are you? So just a quick question. I know that you said you were lengthening a total of 32 trains, and that will mean taking train cars away from other trains. So which service lines have seen a reduction of available train cars to lengthen the other 32 trains? And how does the MTA evaluate from which trains to pull from?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm not the service planner in the company, but, we're looking at all the, again, we're looking at every train, every day, every car, right? And we're, some trains are underperforming and some trains are overperforming. So, to be as, as basic as I can be, we're, taking from the underperforming trains to build up the overperforming trains so that everybody gets a good experience.
And do we know just when those trains will no longer be of use? Like, you could return those trains to their previous
I guess I don't understand the question.
Yeah, so the train cars right now, when will lengthening no longer be needed, do you expect?
Well, I mean, I think to Jano's point, we're still watching to see how the schedule settles. I mean, again, we're not even in it for 2 weeks. There already has been a bit of kind of movement over to Grand Central from Penn. You know, is there going to be more? We sort of have to see. So we're trying to be both dynamic and also, you know, realistic with respect to trains that we think are going to be heavy regardless, and sort of act on those trains first, and then we'll sort of see how the patterns emerge.
Right, in the gallery back there, we got Tim McNicholas with CBS 2. Tim.
Hi, Catherine. Could you guys hear me all right? Okay. A couple of the top questions I've heard from riders are, one, a lot of people have wondered why couldn't the LIRR forecast some of these problems, or why didn't their research show that this would happen so they could project it? Wondering if you could answer that. And then also another thing that a lot of people are, I think, having a hard time grasping is, if there's more service, then why are the trains still so crowded in the mornings and in the evenings?
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little while ago. I mean, I think that there's assumptions with respect to how many people will ultimately come here as opposed to going to Penn. You know, that's still taking shape. You know, that's why we're trying to respond and be as nimble as we can be with respect to directing cars to where the people are. But there was a planning effort. I mean, obviously, you know, hybrid work, as I said, is a huge factor in terms of who's traveling when and how frequently. You know, we are monitoring the ridership, monitoring which trains are crowded, and trying to make the adjustments that we can make to be able to give people a more positive experience.
All right, we're going to be on and off topic. There's Nolan Hicks from the Post. Nolan?
Hey, everyone. In 2012, the Long Island Railroad got back a capacity study of the Jamaica terminal that tested out a schedule that's thematically similar to the one you guys launched, and found that Jamaica would fall over basically every morning because of cascading delays if you went ahead without major capacity improvements at the station. Those capacity improvements aren't set to be completed until 2027. Does this mean we're going to have Jamaica falling over every morning because of capacity problems until then?
Well, I think the short answer, Nolan, to a long question is no. Jamaica is not going to be falling over because it's not falling over right now. Now, we are having a period of adjustment, and as we've said, we're making adjustments to facilitate it. And you've seen improvement in the service every day. You've seen improvement in the levels of crowding, and I think we've seen, although it's more subjective, improvements in the passengers getting more accommodated and used to the new patterns. What we've done, I think, that has made a big difference, and really it's Kathy and her team, is to focus on track assignments so that people can have more predictability about where trains going to Penn and to Grand Central are going to land in the station, and they are being pushed onto tracks 1, 2, and 3, and making it so that people have a more predictable experience. But when trains are arriving every 2 to 5 minutes to the major New York terminals, people are getting the opportunity to pick what's good for them and to move, and that is starting to work well.
If I could follow up, the study found the on-time performance of Jamaica with an East Side Access schedule that shifted Brooklyn over to a shuttle and that did away with time transfers to boost capacity, which are the two key facets of the schedule you rolled out, would find Jamaica averaging on-time performance of give or take 70% every morning, which is what you've been getting. So did the study foretell the future, and if so, why weren't the capacity improvements completed before launching the schedule?
Well, I guess I would question the premise of your question, which is that the capacity improvements were not made. So there's a phased project, right? So Jamaica capacity improvement phase 1 is basically done, and then there's going to be another aspect of that. So that's I'm just saying that's an ongoing project, and the platform F aspect of that project is done. That's what created platform, where the shuttle trains are operating from. The purpose of that, to your point, was to eliminate conflicts between the Brooklyn-bound trains and the Manhattan-bound trains. That was a very important investment in the reliability of that service. I want to echo what Jano said. The other premise of the question is that Jamaica is falling apart every day. I've been at Jamaica every day for 2 weeks. It is not falling apart every day. It's been better every day than the day before. It was better this morning than it was yesterday. It was better yesterday than than the day before. It is improving. It is improving every day because of the dispatching and train routing choices that are being made, because our customers are getting more accustomed to the service, because we're eliminating up and over transfers. Passenger flow is better. Are we going to have a bad day every now and again? Absolutely, and I'm sure you guys will be there when we do. But we are doing much, much better every single day, and a lot of the investments that have been made are already paying dividends.
I've got one on topic and one off topic. On the on topic, Kathy talked last week about improving the wayfinding signage inside.
Yeah.
Has there been any discussion about the outside?
Yeah.
There are people on Madison Avenue who don't know where Grand Central Madison is.
Yeah.
And there are no signs that say where it is or where to enter. Has that been a discussion with DOT or with the city, or some way to tell people where this terminal exists?
No, we're going to have to do that. I agree with you, actually. I mean, I think we've really been very focused upon wayfinding in our own house, right? So, the wayfinding between Grand Central terminal upstairs and here, and within the space, which is kind of big. So we've been very focused on our own house, and I agree with you. I think we're going to have to make that outreach to the city to sort of figure out how to promote wayfinding on the streets. Absolutely.
On the off topic, the US DOT budget request came out today, and it includes about $500 million for 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2. Do you view that as basically pie in the sky because this budget has iffy chances in Congress, or is this the green light to move forward with Phase 2?
Well, number one, I am thrilled that the Biden administration recognizes the importance of this project. Not for nothing, we've been promising East Harlem and Central Harlem the 2nd Avenue subway since Joe Biden was like 10 years old. So we ought to be, I'm thrilled that they recognize it and have put it in the budget. Listen, the CIG program has been continuously funded through Republican, Democratic administrations and so on. So I am optimistic. But one point that needs to be borne in mind, which is to land that grant once and for all, the US DOT is requiring us to demonstrate that we're going to have financial stability in our operating budget so that we can pay for the operation of a new train line in addition to everything else, which means that Governor Hochul's budget, which is a plan to make sure it brings the MTA back to fiscal stability, has to be acted on by the legislature. We need the intervention that Governor Hochul's budget offers up in order to make sure that we can meet the qualifications for the 2nd Avenue subway grant.
All right, Dan Ribley here from New York 1.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I don't have a super technical question, but how would you or Kathy or both, how would you characterize the changes you're announcing today? And is this a substantive change, or is this fixing around the edges of a basic problem that you have a terminal here that rivals Penn Station but without the demand for Penn Station?
Okay, well, the first thing I would say is that all of the trains that Kathy and the Long Island Railroad have lengthened are no longer over capacity. So you can see that the moves that are being made are making a difference. And you can see that in also the reduction in the time between the Atlantic shuttle trains. So the actions that are being taken are significant, they're benefiting the customers, and they're being made, they're using a scalpel to make sure that they address what the customers are experiencing and what they're seeing. But Kathy, I'll let you speak more broadly.
Yeah, please, about the at least the changes you're announcing, the new ones for today.
Yeah, I mean, we can't, the Oscars are on Sunday. We can't be everything everywhere all at once, right? I mean, we're responding to what we're seeing. We can't do everything all at once. But, we've had issues with respect to capacity on the Ronkonkoma branch. It's one of our busiest branches. A lot of early morning construction workers, they leave early, they go home early. So we are responding to things that we are seeing to be able to improve the customer experience. I mean, a lot of what you heard today, it's not all about Ronkonkoma, but a lot of it is. So, these are things that we can do now, and we're looking about things that we can do next week, 2 weeks from now and beyond. We need to respond to the data that we're seeing. This is stuff that we think that we can do now.
But I would just say, Dan, just to be clear, the terminal the service that we're operating here is, the day it opened, is like the third or fourth largest commuter rail system in the United States on its own. So this is a significant, in terms of scale, it's significant in terms of giving New Yorkers options. And the Long Island Railroad is doing the work day by day to make sure it is part of a much better system for Long Island residents and for the people who want to go out to Long Island to work and the businesses who need them there. That is the difference that's being made.